Good evening, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Faraz Patel. We'd like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. Of course, just one segment is going to be coming from Johannesburg for today's show, as the other three will be segments and interviews that I've recorded in Cape Town. And of course, we'll start off with this being World's Week, and an important topic, especially when it comes to the Muslim community and the reason why every Muslim should have a will in place, how a Sharia-compliant will ensures fairness and faithfulness to Islamic principles, and why planning ahead is very essential for both peace of mind and family harmony. So my next guest, he's an admitted attorney with a master's in taxation and postgraduate diploma in Islamic finance and banking. He also serves as the legal advisor at Baraka Bank, where he provides strategic guidance on banking, finance, and regulatory matters. He's particularly dedicated to highlighting the significance of Sharia-compliant wills. Let me welcome Mohamed Raees Hussain. Will be discussing this with me. Mohamed Raees, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakallah so much for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for hosting us.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. I think, Mohammed, the obviously obvious question, the importance, why is there an importance for individuals to have a will?
So a will is one of the most important, if not the most important document a person can prepare in their lifetime. It obviously ensures that when we pass away, our assets are distributed in a specific manner, which is in accordance with the Sharia, thereby protecting our families from unnecessary disputes, as well as giving us peace of mind whilst we are alive. And in Islam, the significance of actually having a will is even greater. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is reported to have said, "It is not permissible for any Muslim who has something to will that he may even pass 2 nights without having his last will written and kept with him." So this powerful guidance reminds us that making a will is not just a legal formality. It is also a spiritual responsibility for Muslims living in countries like South Africa, where Sharia inheritance laws is not automatically applied. Having an Islamic will becomes essential. Without it, one's estate will be distributed in a way that does not comply with Sharia. So by preparing an Islamic will, a person ensures that their wealth is divided according to Sharia principles, fairly and justly, with shares allocated to the rightful heirs as prescribed in the Quran. This is an act of obedience and an act of justice, and ultimately an act of worship.
Mohamed Raees, let's talk about some of the requirements for a valid will. So obviously you'll get a client coming to you and saying, Mr. Hussain, assist us in drafting a will. So what would you sit down with him, mention the requirements, and of course, in the overall construction of this will?
So living in South Africa, we know there's obviously the wills as such is governed by the Wills Act 7 of 1953. And again, we look at a will only being as powerful as it is valid. And obviously the act that I just mentioned sets out clear rules that must be followed. And obviously if these requirements are not met, then a will can be easily declared as invalid, leaving your estate to be distributed according to the laws of interstate succession. So obviously what we would then discuss with the client, if he were to come in and wanted to draw up a will, is obviously we then need to make sure that the formalities of making the will are obviously established, which will render the will valid and enforceable in South Africa. And to make a will legally valid in South Africa, there's obviously a few guidelines that can be provided. And obviously the person making the will must be at least 16 years old. So I know the age of majority is 18 in South Africa. However, to make a will in South Africa, you just need to be 16 years and older and of sound mental health. Obviously, the will then needs to be in writing. Verbal instructions are not permissible, no matter how clear they may be. It becomes very difficult to be proved and obviously then accepted if a person passes away out a valid written will and only having left verbal instructions. The testator must then obviously sign the will correctly, and this must be done in the presence of two competent witnesses. And the requirements for witnesses in terms of regulating a will is that the witnesses must be independent, meaning they should not be your beneficiaries or somebody that would stand to inherit from you. And they must be at least 14 years or older. And more importantly, if there's any alterations to a will, it is extremely important that the testator, as well as the same two witnesses, sign next to those alterations, which, if not done, could render that part of the will invalid.
Mohamed Raees, discuss with us the practical considerations when making a will and, of course, preparing for death.
So death is not a possibility. It is a certainty, and the Quran reminds us of this, in that every soul will taste death. This verse is both a reminder as well as a call to action. Preparing for death is not a morbid exercise, but rather it is an act of care, compassion, and foresight, in that you put these things into practice for your loved ones when you leave them behind. So having a valid Islamic will is the first step, but we must go further to ease the burden on our families at a time when they will be grieving. And some of the practical considerations that we keep in mind is that make your will accessible. So give a copy of your will to your appointed executor, as well as a trusted family member. Let them know exactly where the will is kept so they can retrieve it once you pass away and that will is actually required. Also, it's important that you prepare a schedule of your assets and liabilities. So in an Islamic will, you don't set out your assets or your liabilities for that matter, but it is extremely important that you keep a list of these assets, liabilities, contact details, so that when you pass away, your executor is easily accessible to all of that information. Another important consideration is obviously to organize your important documents like IDs, marriage certificates of yours, your spouse, as well as your heirs. So have everything kept in a single safe place, and obviously let your loved ones know where these documents are kept. And obviously something else to keep in mind is that if you do have minor children, ensure that you make arrangements and the necessary arrangements for their care as well as guardianship. And this avoids confusion once you pass away and are not there to provide those instructions. And I think one of the most important things, and something we always miss or unintentionally pass by, is obviously providing for immediate expenses. So once you pass away, your accounts are frozen and your family does not have access to them. So ensure that you leave behind sufficient cash or funds in a separate account in the name of a spouse or heir perhaps, so that they can continue living once you pass away, in that their living expenses for food, even school fees and other urgent needs are taken care of. So by taking these steps, you are not just writing a document, you are leaving behind a well-prepared roadmap that will obviously spare your family unnecessary hardships at a time where they need comfort more than anything else.
Mohamed Raees, one final question. How does an individual get their free will in order to make sure that they are prepared for any eventuality?
So every year, National Wills Week is observed across South Africa. And this year it takes place from the 15th, which was Monday, and runs until Friday, the 19th of September. And this initiative is a timely reminder to all South Africans to make sure that you have a valid will, a valid Sharia will in place. And at Baraka Bank, we understand that for Muslims, planning for the future must be done in line with Sharia principles. That's why, in support of National Wills Week, we are offering our Sharia compliant will completely free of charge to the community. And getting your copy is quick and easy. So you can in fact go online right now and download a copy from the bank's website. Alternatively, you may collect one from our branches nationwide. And we take it a step further. So if you do need assistance in completing your will, which I know a lot of the elderly people prefer doing, so they can have that interaction and consultation and clear up any questions or uncertainty that they may have. But it's open to the younger generation as well, who seem to be a bit, you know, I'm not going to say negligent, but a bit less concerned with putting a will in place on the basis that, we're still young, we have time. But I urge one and all, as long as you're 16 years and older, come through, get a copy of your will. If you do need assistance in completing it, contact our customer services team. We'll gladly assist you in setting up a consultation with a member of our legal team. So you can simply call us on 086 225 786. So my parting words on that is, don't wait until it's too late. Use this National Wills Week to secure your legacy and fulfill your religious duty.
Yeah, I think that's important right over there. You're never too young to see death, and I think that's a great way to end this conversation. Mohamed Raees, absolute pleasure having you on. Shukran for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That's Mohamed Raees Hussain, a legal advisor at Baraka Bank and a specialist when it comes to Sharia compliant wills. So the conversation on wills continues. I had a conversation with Waleed Sayed from Sayed Attorneys, and of course he discussed his take on Wills Week. After that, I had a conversation with Harun Ori, who is the national coordinator of PAGAT. You know them, of course, as People Against Gangsterism and Drugs, about the gang violence that continues to occur in many of the Cape Flats. So do stay tuned. More is coming for you after this break.